Did you have nothing but a good time in the 80s? On September 17th, Paramount Plus released this 3-episode documentary called Nothing But a Good Time, the uncensored story of 80s hair metal. And this series dove deep into the wild and excessive 80s hard rock scene, featuring interviews with some of the artists from that decade. Some of those featured interviews included Bret Michaels, Stephen Pearcy, Nuno Bettencourt, Dan Dokken, Jack Russell, Rudy Sarzo, and Dave Snake Sabo. It explored the cultural impact of hair metal with a focus on the Sunset Strip's vibrant music scene. And what this series did was show how it started, how it was at its peak, and how it declined. And you get the gist of why it was called Nothing But a Good Time, because that was the song that was performed by the awesome group Poison. So with the very first episode, the title was The Sunset Strip, and it delved into the rise of the 80s hair metal scenes on the Sunset Strip, highlighting how bands ignited a new rock movement. And a lot of these bands included Quiet Riot,
whose album Metal Health became the first hard rock record to ever reach #1 on the Billboard charts.
Motley Crue.
So Shout at the Devil comes out, and there was a lot of controversy.
Wasp. And Ratt.
Ratt had a very unique look.
And I really enjoyed this episode because I was in middle school, and I will never forget when I heard Quiet Riot's Metal Health album. I was hooked. And not so much with Motley Crue or even Wasp. I never really heard of Wasp back in the day. I know now. But it was one of those things where, okay, this kind of got me interested into this kind of music. And so, because of that, this is how it really started for me. Now, in episode 2, the title was called The Second Wave. And this episode talked about the period after Motley Crue and Quiet Riot, setting the stage for something even more to happen. And this episode featured bands like Poison.
Poison was the band that hit it first.
Vixen.
I wanted to play so hard that my hands would bleed, and they did.
And Guns N' Roses.
Good luck finding a better album than Appetite for Destruction.
And this also paved the way for other elements of that time period.
In a lot of ways, the rise of MTV coincided with the rise of 80s hard rock.
MTV was also a big factor in getting these groups going.
It made people think visually about music now. You know, it's like, what will the video look like?
And then it also talked about some of the struggles of some of the bands. It was easy for the guys to be popular, but it was difficult for some of the female hair bands, like Vixen.
The record companies just shied away. They were like, well, we already have a girl band.
But it also had a little downside for me personally. Reason why is because about that time period, if you wanted to get popular, you had to release a power ballad.
Power ballads were a big deal for a lot of artists.
And
who doesn't love power ballads?
Those drove me nuts. And some of the band's careers were cut short. There was a moment where one group was touted as the next big thing, but their career got cut short due to a tragic accident, and that was Hanoi Rocks.
I called my mom just to say that it was Razzle, and she cried because she remembered him, you know.
But other than that, this was my favorite episode of the 3 episodes that I watched, because this time period was definitely in my wheelhouse, and I really loved this time period. And then finally, episode 3 of the series was entitled The Final Chapter. And this episode explored the peak and the eventual decline. Well, it was really a crash. It was not a decline. And this episode highlighted the excesses and the cultural impact of the music scene during that time period. And it featured some of the notable groups from the 80s during that time period. One of those was Skid Row.
I grew up in a little town called Sayreville, New Jersey, commonly known as Slayerville.
Another group was Extreme.
You know, people say to me all the time, it was more than words, a blessing or a curse.
And another group was Trixter.
All we ever wanted to do when we were kids with Trixter is play an arena.
But then Nirvana came, and that just exploded everything.
When the 90s came in, it literally was like a nuclear missile. I mean, it literally just exploded.
And unfortunately, it also talked about recent tragedies of some of these band members. In the first episode, they talked about Randy Rhoads.
I'm awakened by boom! That I was going to take care of him. I brought him back home in a box.
Episode 2 talked about the tragedy of Hanoi Rocks drummer Razzle.
He lost control and hit a car with 2 kids in it and crippled them, and Razzle died.
And in episode 3, it talked about the recent passings of Warrant lead singer Jani Lane.
Everybody lost everything because Jani lost everything.
Rat guitarist Robin Crosby.
Everybody loved him. He lost everything because of heroin.
And most recent was the passing of Great White lead singer Jack Russell, and he was in this final episode. And so it just made me wonder, was this Jack Russell's last interview before he passed away? Because he passed away about a month, or maybe even less than a month, before this series was released. And so how sad was that? Doing an interview and not being able to see how the series came out. That's just heartbreaking, isn't it?
And you look back, you go, God, we've just played thousands of shows, thousands. We put out 9 records or whatever it was, and it just went by so fast, and it was all over.
And then it talked about what these bands are doing today and how impactful this music is in our time.
The most incredible thing is the music withstood the test of time.
And that was how it ended. You just see the success of some of these artists that are still on tour.
Metal dead?
No.
Metal is not dead.
It is not dead.
No, metal will never die.
Now recently I did see Def Leppard in concert, but it was not this year. They were in my area like over Labor Day weekend. I was so badly wanting to go check them out because they had Cheap Trick, Journey, and the Steve Miller Band as part of the touring group. And I was wanting to go so bad, but I just could not afford it. But I was able to see Def Leppard, I think it was 2018, when they came to my area and Journey opened for them, and those guys still have it. In fact, if you go to their YouTube page, go subscribe to them, because they do some behind the scene vlogs of their tour stops, and I'm looking forward to their backstage tour when they visited Portland. Like I said, I wanted to go so bad. I just wanted to go so bad. It killed me. It did. But still, I got to see them in recent years, and they still got it. So I really enjoyed this, and if you haven't seen it yet, please, if you have Paramount Plus, I highly recommend you watch this. So let me know, what did you guys think? Did you guys see this documentary? So please let me know down in the comments, and thank you for watching, and have nothing but a good time.